Welcome back to another video. We're doing another deck profile, or a remake of a deck profile. I've been messing around with fairies for a little while, and I have come up with this creation, and let's see how it works out. I've been testing it a couple of times. It's pretty good, but I haven't actually played against someone with it yet. I don't play against people online because it's testing as much, because it's not the same. But getting into the deck profile. Alright, to start off, we have, obviously we have to have the fairy playmat to go with it, but start off we have 2 Sacred Arcanite Parshath, boss monster of the deck. It's 2800. Whenever it deals damage to your opponent, you get to add any Parshath or Counter Trap card from your deck to your hand. And when a Counter Trap is activated while it's in your hand or grave, you can banish 2 fairies from your hand, field, or graveyard and special summon it to your field. Does piercing damage. It's just the main trap searcher of the deck. Next, Power Angel Valkyria. To search out our monsters. Nothing too special about this. It's only a once per turn effect, sadly. So if you want to run 2 of those, and if you're going off of my builds, we'll run 2 of those and 3 Bountiful Artemis, because I'm only running 2, then go ahead, that's perfectly fine. Next up we have Guiding Aerodine 3. This card's amazing. It's the only pendulum monster we're running now. It's a scale of 3. When it's in the pendulum scale, you don't have to pay life points or discard cards to activate effects. So pretty much something like an Ultimate Providence becomes a Solemn Judgment with no cost. Solemn Judgment you can even play without cutting your life points in half. That is, if I had Solemn Judgment. If I had it, I would definitely be running it, but I don't. So next, running 2 Melteal. Every time you activate a counter trap, gain 1,000 life points. If Sanctuary in the Sky is on the field, you get to destroy a card. That comes in very handy when dealing with stuff that's hard to get off the field by battle, like the Sacred Beasts. Using Sacred Beasts as an example because they just got released recently. 4,000, trying to overpower 4,000 attack isn't very useful, especially when Fallen Paradise is on the field. If Fallen Paradise is on the field, then you would have to overpower it. But next we have 2 Bountiful Artemis. I'm running another card in here to replace that third one. But whenever you activate a counter trap, draw a card. And then for the one card that's replacing the Artemis, I'm actually running 1 Theseus, Goddess of Light. Every time you draw a card or a fairy monster, you can reveal it, and then draw another one. Pairing with Bountiful Artemis, we're doing a draw phase. If you keep drawing fairy monsters, and then you draw your next card, it's not going to be a monster, unless you don't want to reveal it, like if you want to keep it a secret, which is in here, and then that would be fine too. It's optional, but you can draw and draw and draw until you get either a spell or a trap, and the only traps are running are counter traps. So if you're bricked with something like Rebirth of Parshath and you need counter traps, you can always draw off of this card for a counter trap. Try and attempt to get it. Next we are running 1 Manevria, Scholar of the Sky. Each time you activate counter trap, it gains 500 attack, and if Sanctuary in the Sky is on the field, you can add a counter trap with a different name from your grave to your hand. So if we activate Rebirth of Parshath, we can add back Ultimate Providence, or loop between Ultimate Providence and Divine Punishment. Moving on to the hand traps. Triple Honest. Whenever your opponent attacks, drop an Honest on them, that's gonna hurt. That's another way you can get around the Sacred Beasts. And then I'm running one of each Herald color. You can customize these however you want. It's personal preference. I'd rather one of each for each case, because I have run into all three of them. More so monsters, than traps, not as much. So running 2 Herald of Orange and 1 Herald of Green. Doesn't matter. And then moving on to the spell cards. Moving on to the spells. We have triple Sanctum of Parshath. Sanctuary in the Sky on the field, which we're also running 2 of. Oh my goodness, hold on. Focus camera. There we go. 3 Sanctum of Parshath, 2 Sanctuary in the Sky. So we're running 5 Sanctuaries total. Sanctuary doesn't do really anything for the deck. You don't have to play your fairies in defense, so you're not taking damage. But Sanctum, all your fairies gain 300 attack, which, with the exception to the Heralds and Honest, all your fairies would become 2,000 attack. Meltiel would become 19, but about 2,000 base attack, and that's not bad for level 4. On top of, once per turn, you can target any amount of fairies or 3 fairies or counter traps in your grave with different names and put them back on top of the deck in any order. I don't use this effect as much, but it is still there. And then 2 Sanctuary in the Sky, just so we're running extra Sanctuaries. 2 Ties of the Brethren. I have bricked several times with the last build into that 3rd one. Hasn't stopped me from playing just because it's based around the counter traps. But when you have one of your level 4s out, you could summon 2 level 4s with different names, same attribute and type, not a problem in this deck. And same level. Skip your battle phase, and you can't special summon the rest of the turn. And then you would bring out something like Honest, Guiding Ardine, and whatever was best in that situation. And you would have a board set up. You can bounce Honest to your hand. If you already had Honest, you could go for something like Valkyria, or yeah. Alright, but moving on to the last one. Trap cards. Rebirth of Parshath. 3. Rebirth of Parshath is an amazing trap. It's one of the best traps in the deck. Reveal a counter trap in your hand, which is probably the biggest problem I have. Pay 1,000 life points and discard a card to negate an opponent's spell, trap, or monster effect. Shuffle it back into the deck, and then if you do, and it doesn't specify this on the card, but it is in the rulings, if you do shuffle it back into the deck, you can summon out any Parshath monster from your deck or extra deck. I don't have an extra deck with this deck. I don't have the Synchro yet. I don't have the Link. I would run 2 of each, plus whatever Abyss Dweller. Yeah. Next, triple Divine Punishment. If you control Sanctuary in the Sky, it negates anything, any monster, any effect. Ultimate Providence. You can discard a spell, trap, or monster effect, or monster to negate that type of effect. So if opponent's monster effect activates, you can discard a monster card and negate it. If you have Guiding Ardine out, then you don't need to negate whatsoever. I would do test hands with this deck, but it's kind of hard to test hands with a counter deck when you don't have anything to counter. Drastic drop-off: when your opponent adds a card from their deck to their hand, including drawing, they have to get rid of one of those cards. So if it's like Pot of Greed, no, it's a banned card, example, then you could draw 2, or they would draw 2, and then they would have to discard one of those 2. It's their choice, but another thing is if like they summon Infinitrack Harvester, and then search like Brutal Dozer to their hand, can trigger Drastic Drop-off, having them discard the Brutal Dozer, and now they can't trigger off that Brutal Dozer in the hand. They can't go into their Xyz summon using just that Brutal Dozer. Does not mean that they're baiting me out or anything like that if they know I have this card. And then for the last 2 cards, these can be anything. If I could, I'd run Double Judgment. I don't have Judgment. I'm running 1 Recall and 1 Dark Bribe. Recall allows, they do the same thing, except one's towards monster effects, the other one's spell trap. Negates them, and then your opponent would draw a card. That +1 is not a good thing, but the fact that it can negate any spell trap or monster effect is nice. That's it for the deck profile. I could probably do test hands with this. It just wouldn't be a standard. It wouldn't be pretty much the same as it would be a 1-turn test hand. Probably do 6 or 8 of them. I could go into a 2nd turn, depending on what's in my hand. But this is definitely a go first deck. There's not a lot of go first decks out. A lot of OTK, unless it's the new FTK deck, or the new Numeron Lock deck. But thank you for watching. See you guys in another video. Peace out.